Welcome to the Custom Workflows tutorial in dotCMS. In previous versions of dotCMS, we had a very simple workflow implementation where you could create, assign, and resolve workflow tasks without any requirements or restrictions. In dotCMS 2.0, we can now create custom workflows with different steps, actions, and subactions that may have different requirements and restrictions on how you edit your content. Custom workflows are only available with an enterprise license. If you're using the Community Edition, I invite you to request a trial license to test them. Let me show you how they work. Once you're logged into dotCMS, go to Structures, Workflow Schemes, and you'll see a new portlet where we can manage the workflow schemes we have in the system. From here, we have two workflows that will be created with the starter site, the default scheme and the document management scheme. We're going to go over how the document management one works and how you can create new workflow schemes. So from here, if I wanted to edit the one that we already have, I just have to click on it. It will show me information about the workflow scheme. It lets me edit it here. And in here I have different fields. I have a name for the workflow. I have a description. I have whether it's archived or not. I have what's the initial step. And you'll see that we have different steps created here. I have either if it's mandatory or not. And what's the default action. If a workflow is mandatory, it means that anytime that you're going to edit your content, the only available actions you'll have are the ones that are provided by the workflow. If the workflow scheme is not mandatory, then you will also have the option to save or save and publish. Let me cancel now to show you the steps. On this page now you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. The steps are editing, review, legal approval, published, and archived. My first step here, editing, has 4 actions: save as draft, send for review, send to legal, and publish. And each of these will go to a step. They can either go back to the same step as save as draft, or they can go to a different step. Like this one goes to review, or this one goes to legal approval. Each of the steps can either resolve the workflow task or can continue it. In this case, editing doesn't resolve the task, so when you assign to a step editing, the workflow task stays open. If you assign to one that will resolve, like published or archived, in this case we have it checked here, then either of these 2 steps will resolve your workflow task. Once a task has been resolved, if you then assign it to another step that doesn't resolve, that will reopen the workflow. Let me show you more details. Once I'm in the editing step, I'm going to click here so I can see the steps here. So my first action is save as draft. And on this screen we have a lot of different options that I want to explain. First, we say requires log. We want to be able to require log anytime we're going to save the content and we don't have any other action that needs to happen after that. In this case, I think we're going to save the content, we're not doing anything else, so we need to make sure we require the log so then no one else can edit while we're editing. Then it says here who can use. From here you can add, you have a list of all of your users and roles, and you can select who can use this workflow action. If you don't select anyone, then it will be available to everyone. In here you can of course type, and this will populate your drop down. So it doesn't matter if you have a lot of users, you just have to know what you're looking for here on the drop down. Then after we select who can use it, we can then say, once you click on the action, are you going to allow comments on the workflow? Yes or no. In this case we have no. Then you can say whether you can assign it The user that's creating the workflow can assign it or cannot assign the workflow. In this case, it can't. So then automatically it will get assigned to the current user. If we did have this here and we had a role, for instance here, then it will ask you where do you want to assign it. But I'm going to leave it how it is so we can see how it works. The next step here says where I'm going to go after I save. In this case, I'm going to go back to editing because the only thing I'm doing is saving. You can also then select an icon. We have a lot of different icons here. You can click on more choices to see different ones. Since we're saving, then we select the saving icon. We can also have custom code, which will display in the workflow action pop-up, and I'll show you where that is. Once we have that, then we can select a sub-action. We have different sub-actions here. We have archive content, we have comment on workflow, delete content, lock content, notify assignee, notify users, publish content, require multiple approvers, reset workflow, Twitter status update, unarchive content, unlock content, and unpublished content. Most of them are very easy to understand just by the name, but then some of the ones that you don't know what they do, we'll explain in more detail after this. Now I'm going to go on another tab and use this workflow. Something that's very important that I didn't mention before is that these workflows are assigned now to your content structures or your content types. I'm going to look for my document here, and you'll see that we have a workflow scheme document management. So you can either have default or document management, and these are the two ones that we have in the system right now. We're using document management only for the documents in this case. So I'm going to go to the content, and I'm going to add a new piece of content here, and I can choose a file, and you can click on something like that, and I'm just going to say test here. So on this side here you have, instead of having the regular save and publish buttons that we usually have, you can see now we have save as draft, send for review, send to legal, and publish. These 4 actions here are the same ones that we have on my editing step here: save as draft, send for review, send to legal, and publish. So this is what's happening. I'm right now on the step editing, and these are my available actions. I have nothing else. I have to do these 4 actions. So this is how you restrict users and what they can do when they're editing the content. So the first thing I'm going to do is save it as draft. So that's doing is just saving it. It didn't publish it because I don't have any publish on that action, and it didn't go anywhere. It really just did that. If I click on it, you can see here I'm still on step editing because that's what my action is doing, and I can either now again send for review, send to legal, publish, do all of that. What I'm going to do now is send it to a next step. So I'm going to send it for review, and this is the action. Let me click on the action so you can see how it looks like. In this case, it says that contributor can use it. Since I'm logged in as an administrator, I can use all of the actions. But in your case, then only the contributors would be using it. It allows me to enter a comment. So we'll get a little pop-up that requires a comment. And then it says that it will assign it to a reviewer. So it doesn't allow me to assign, it will automatically do that. And then it says that the next step will be review. After that, it also says that it's going to not notify the assignee, and it will unlock the content. So I'm here, I need to lock for editing, right? Because we're editing content. Then the next thing I'm going to do here is send for review. Well, I'm going to change it here if I wanted to, because it will save it. So I'm going to send this for review, and this is where we'll get to enter our comments. My comments here. And if you can see here, it says the assignee is reviewer. I'm going to save that. And now if I click on it, I can see that my content now, it's in step review, it's been assigned to reviewer, and now my actions here have changed. Also, if I go into the workflow tasks here, I need to look here for reviewer, and you can see here is my workflow task. I click on it and it says it was created by the admin user, assigned to reviewer, my comments here, and this is the information about the content. And then here I also have the same available actions that I have when I'm editing the content, and these are all the available actions that I have on the step review, which is where I am right now. So I'm going to go back to my scheme and I'm going to look at my review step, and I have save as draft, return for edits, send to legal, or publish. In this case then again, save as draft will send it back to review, the same step because I'm working on it, and as I'm working on it I want to save it, and once I'm done with it I can either send it to legal for legal approval, or I can send it back to editing so the contributor can make the changes and send it back to me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send it to legal. So let me show you how this one works. This one works pretty much like the send to review, but now the reviewer is the one that can use that action, not the contributor. Also allows me to use the comments, and it's going to automatically assign to publisher legal. And then the next step will be the legal approval. Once it's done, it will notify the assignee and then it will unlock the content. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the user can assign so you can see how it works. It's how it's different from the reviewer one that we did. I'm going to save this, and from this page I'm going to send to legal, and I'm saying here I'm sending to legal for approval. And then on the assignee here, I can then select someone from the list. I have, let me see, I have publisher or legal, which means it's going to show me the publisher or legal role and then all of the users that have that role. So I can either assign it to a role or assign it to a specific user. I'm going to assign to a role. Also, if you say here, include users from parent roles, if publisher legal has a parent role and there are users assigned to that role, they will also show up on my dropdown. So I'm going to save this here. And now let me go back here. And now I'm in the step legal approval. Let me go back now. And that's what we said. We're going to send it to legal approval. In legal approval now, I only have three options here, three actions. We can either return it again so they can review for edits, we can save it if we're changing it, or we can publish it. So let's say that we're done, we're fine with the changes and we want to publish. Let me click on it, and this can only be done by your publisher legal user. It won't allow comments, it won't allow to be assigned, it will get assigned to the current user, which is me, and the next step will be published. What it's going to do is it's going to publish your content and it will unlock it. But will also close my workflow because I have this workflow step as resolved. So let me go here, I'm going to publish. You can see now my content has been published, it's green now. And the step is published. So let me now here go into reopening this workflow. And how do I do that? If I'm here, I have the options to republish, which will just assign it again, to archive, which will go to the next step, or I can tweet this. If we archive, that will reset the workflow back to editing. So let me do that here. And that has archived my content. For more helpful videos, visit our resources section on the dotCMS website. From all of us at dotCMS, thanks for watching.